All right. This says that we are preparing to live stream the meeting. Directing to YouTube. Let's see how this happens. Yay. All right. It looks like Zoom is live streaming. Okay. All right. We're almost ready for class to start. I'm still working out how to make all of this technology work together. But today, thankfully, we got Zoom to load in with everything needed for me to be able to control from here successfully. You would have to have been here for the first class to see how things went. There were a few glitches, and I think that we have them worked out. So hopefully I don't have to do anything more from here. I'm seeing my live stream is on YouTube right now. So my YouTube channel, RadOwl, um, you may not know what's going on. Why are you seeing me right now? It's because I am JM DeBord and I am the creator of Dream School. And in October, we are doing live classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I wanted to give you a taste of what I'm offering to my students. So first, we are at dreamschool.net, and this is the October 2024 live class. The classes are all being recorded. In fact, that reminds me, let me go ahead and hit the record button. Okay, here we are, recording in progress. So I was just telling the YouTube live streamers that people watching the live stream that this is Owl's School of Dreaming live course for October 2024. And this is week number 1 and class number 2. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we meet here for class, where I'm going to teach you the methods, knowledge, practices, and traditions of dream interpretation and analysis. Now, I have a little different take on dream interpretation, which my friend Linda Schiller pointed out to me. Most people think of dream interpretation as you go to somebody who is an expert and they tell you what your dream means. Well, that's not how it works these days, especially here at Owl School and at the Association for the Study of Dreams in their Code of Ethics. It says that the dreamer is the final authority on their dream, which means that as a dream interpreter, you're not telling them what their dream means. You're leading them to their own answers. But I have a little different take also on what interpretation means. I think of it more as a language. Dreaming is a language that uses symbolism. Symbolism is the language of dreaming. And you, as a dream interpreter, whether for your own dreams or for someone else, your job is to translate that language of dreaming. All right, let me see if I can get this timer off of the screen here. This is starting to bother me a little bit. So there we go. Goodbye, timer. Get the apps out of the way. I hope you like the background, by the way. It seems appropriate for what we're doing here. Plus, I'm in my home office, which doubles as a guest bedroom. And the way everything is set up behind me is a bed. And you don't need to be seeing that. So I chose this background for us to give you something to look at while we talk about dreams. So let me get a little drink of water here. And then we'll get into today's material. So we're going to start off with a story. And that means that you can kick back and relax and listen. You don't need to be watching if you don't want to. Later, I might have some PowerPoint slides for you. Let's see how much content that we can get through here and allow me to start you off today's, this part of today's class, this lesson is going to go back to the importance of dreaming. Now, if you were here for lesson number 1, the first class, we talked about why dreams are important, and we gave a lot of different reasons for it. First of all, dreaming is a biological necessity. You have to dream. There are people, by the way, who've been shown they don't dream. And it's usually because they have some kind of brain disease or a traumatic injury that they've suffered. And they're not really experiencing dreams as we understand them. I have also talked with people who were blind. We think of dreams as visual experiences. And I asked them, well, what do you experience in your dreams? And what they said is that they have all the other senses engaged while dreaming. They can hear things, feel things, touch things. Usually they don't see things. Sometimes, though, they will get imagery. It depends on how long they've been without sight. People who were blind from birth never have any memories of seeing anything, so that you might expect them to not be able to have dreams in the way that we understand them, but they still do dream, just in a different sort of way. So dreaming is necessary. It does a lot of things for your body, your mind, your brain, your entire nervous system. Your cells clean house, your brain cleans house, your brain rewires to incorporate new information. You clear out your memory banks so that the next day you have space for new memories. You incorporate the memories from the day into the existing memory structures of your mind. This is known as memory reconsolidation, and it's a big reason why we dream. I finished that section of the lesson with a quote from Dr. Ruben Naiman, a sleep medicine specialist who's really big, well known in the world of dreaming and the study of dreams. He said that dreaming is psychological digestion. And I like this 2-word summary because you're digesting your experiences of life, whatever happens during the day or whenever you sleep or whenever you're awake. And then you go to sleep at night, presumably, and your brain, your body shuts down, your senses shut down, or at least they go into low power mode. And you're now you have all these resources free to be able to run maintenance processes. It's very similar to what happens on computer networks. When network traffic is down, then the computer servers and individual computers can do things to, help to clean up the system. And that's a lot of what we're doing while dreaming. This also includes emotional processing, which is also very important for the process of dreaming. So these are some of the reasons why dreaming is very, very important. And I want to take you off today off of a side path of that discussion. And it starts with someone who was we'll call him the CEO of the world's largest syndicate or conglomerate of the time. And he's a historical figure. And got up in the morning getting ready for a busy day. He had a lot planned that day. There were a lot of meetings at work. Important people in the organization were going to be there. And his wife had a dream and she told him about it. She said, I saw you at work and you were surrounded by people and they pulled out knives and stabbed you to death. And okay, so picture the scene. Imagine that this is you in this situation. You're getting ready for a busy day, and someone very important in your life comes to you and says, I had this dream that you died at work. Let's say today, you died today at work. What would you do? Now, I've been asked this question a lot by people who've come to Reddit, where r/streams, where I'm known as RadOwl, the one of the community moderators there. And one guy was about to get on a flight. He said, I had a dream that a plane crashed. And I'm about to get on. I got a flight planned for, later today or tomorrow or whenever it was. And maybe I should reschedule this flight. And we talked about his dream, and it didn't really have the features of a premonition. And people dream about plane crashes all the time. It's kind of common dream theme, at least flying and then planes crashing. Yeah, I've seen, I've had those dreams. I know people who've had those dreams. We've talked about them a lot at Reddit. And usually those dreams are symbolic. They're expressing an idea. Oftentimes the idea is something along the lines of you got your hopes up, the plane takes off, and then your hopes come crashing down. Your energy level goes up, then it comes down. Your thoughts rise, your thoughts fall. You have a big ambition that doesn't work out. You come crashing down. We use these metaphors and figures of speech to describe ideas that, it's visualized as a plane, that goes up in the air and then it comes down and crashes. But it doesn't mean that, it's going to happen for real. Well, this man who was the head of this company, he knew the importance of dreams, and he also knew that dreams could come true literally. And he gave a lot of thought to what his wife said. She was really concerned. It was one of those dreams that really, can shake you up, and for good reason. So he decided that, man, why not? We'll take a day off. I'll reschedule the meetings, and people can wait. It's okay. I'm going to listen to my wife. Well, then one of the main people from the company, like his right hand man, comes along to his home, like ready to go to work together. And this CEO tells his right hand man, I can't go to work today. It's just not happening. And my wife had this dream, and I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to just err on the side of caution. Well, then his right hand man starts giving him all the reasons and excuses. Oh, it's just a silly dream. Wives are always concerned about their husbands. You're an important person in a high position of authority. There's always going to be people who have bad intentions for you, but you'll be in a safe place. And, stop all this silliness and let's just go to work. So that's what he decided to do. And so that morning, while he was at work, this was on I believe it's called the 15th of, I believe it's the 15th of March, because we mark this day on our calendars. It's known as the Ides of March. That man, his name was Augustus Caesar, or no, sorry, Julius Caesar, went to the Roman Senate, to the Forum there in Rome, and his assassins surrounded him. His right-hand man, Brutus, the one who talked him out of his plan to avoid going to the Senate that day, I believe was the first one to pull out the knife and plunge it into his body. That's right. That was Caesar's dream, or his wife, actually, Clemestra, had the dream. And if he would have listened to that dream, then he wouldn't have died that day, presumably. And at least not died the way that his wife saw it. She, her dream actually came true. It was prophetic. So obviously that means that, there's good reason to listen to your dreams. But with the caveat that not all dreams are going to come true. In fact, most of them don't, at least not in a literal sense. Dreams are mostly metaphorical. And while they do have a predictive quality to them, people throughout the ages have considered them not just to be predictive, but prophetic. A neighbor of mine who knows what I do, teaching and writing about dreams, showed me a book that he has called The Secret Language of Dreams. And I have it on my bookshelf. I've read part of it, and it goes into it's based more on the history of dreaming that thought of them as dreams as being prophetic, but maybe the wrong word. They're like premonitions of what's going to happen in your life. So for many centuries. In fact, dreams were used as oracles. In fact, the first book that we have on the subject, it was written by a Roman philosopher. And of course, my brain's going to freeze as I try to think of his name. The book is called The Interpretation of Dreams, which Sigmund Freud copied when he wrote his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, and published it in 1900. And that book, it was the first. It's it's the oldest going back, book that we have surviving of that tells us what people believed 1800 years ago about dreams. And it's a dream dictionary that says, if you dream about, 3 heads of corn, you're about to have a big sum of money is going to come your way. Or there are dreams like in the Bible where there was the dream about the 3 fat cows and the 3 skinny cows on either side of the Nile, or 7 cows on one side and 7 on the other. 7 of them were, fat and healthy, and 7 of them were scrawny and looked like they were, they've seen better days. And that dream was interpreted as meaning that there would be 7 years of good harvest, followed by 7 years of famine. And this was Joseph telling Pharaoh that he needed to plan for the future, because Pharaoh's dream was actually showing him the future. Which gets us into a subject that I had planned for today. And we might as well segue into it, which is that you can dream about other people and their well-being. You can dream about members of your family, your community, your schools, your work. I've run across a number of dreams at Reddit where people said that they knew things about their coworkers before they happened, that they were going to be pregnant, for example. This happens a lot in families too. And there are some, families that have a long tradition, a history where certain members of the family dream very accurately about things that are coming up of importance to the family and specific members, things like upcoming pregnancies and marriages, deaths. So there's a good reason why these beliefs exist in the first place and why they persist to this day. It's because we have a lot of evidence that there are dreams that can come true in many different senses of the word. Let's be careful about what we define as true. Some dreams are just very good at predicting what's going to happen in the future because they're seeing, where the wind's blowing. Your mind is working through things as you're sleeping and focusing on things of particular importance. And it's kind of connecting the dots that you may not be connecting while you're awake. But it can, dreams can kind of see where the wind's blowing and what's going to happen. There is if you're, predictive in the sense of like, if you have a big test or meeting coming up and you aren't prepared for it, or you fear that you're not adequately prepared for it, then you have a dream that you bomb, the test or, the meeting. Does that mean that the dream was prophetic, or was it just putting the dots together and telling you what you already kind of knew deep down inside of yourself? Well, it's probably the latter. It's probably just showing you what you already knew deep down inside of yourself because you weren't prepared in the first place. Now, if you have a dream that you're going to bomb a test, really badly, but you've done everything to prepare and you walk into it thinking that you're about to ace this thing, well, there is more of a prophetic or type of quality to that dream. Well, what I wanted to bring you to was an experiment that was run by Henry Reed. He was Henry's no longer with us, but he was a big name in the field of dream work. In particular, he worked with the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And they would have this summer camp. They'd bring these kids in for, weeks of activity, way out in the mountains of Virginia. And Henry was a longtime sort of director, counselor person there. And Henry was big into studying dreams. And one of the things that he wanted to know about was, can you dream? Can you intend to dream about people you know? So we had these students run an experiment to see if they could dream about things related to other uh, people who were other kids who were at the camp. And he had a lot of success with these experiments. And I believe that he published his results. So he was confident enough in his experimental design and in the results that he got to say that, yeah, this is something that can happen. And I can prove it. And I think a lot of other people know already that this is true. They don't need to read the papers and see the experiments and know the science behind it. They can say, yeah, I've had dreams that told me what was going on with someone else, and someone close to me usually, although you can dream about people you don't even know in ways that are just stunningly accurate. But I'd like to give an example of this. This is known from the literature on the study of these. They're called precognitive dreams, dreams that see the future in a way that's just eerily, uncannily accurate. And this is one of the cases where there was a mother. She had an infant child. She was getting some sleep, which if you've been a mother with a young child, you know that how precious your sleep time is because of how much your sleep you generally lose when you're raising a young child. And so the baby was asleep in the crib. She was in bed with her husband, and she had this dream that totally startled her, shook her awake. The dream was that the chandelier that was above the crib had fallen and crashed into the crib. Big, heavy chandelier falls 10 or 15 feet and crashes into the crib. I mean, you can imagine what the result's going to be. So she couldn't shake the feeling about that dream. She felt like she was being warned. She moved the crib out from underneath the chandelier. And later that night, they heard a big crash. You know where the story is going. That chandelier fell for whatever reason, came loose from the thing holding it into the ceiling, came loose, and it crashed down to the ground and right where that crib would have been. So she knew what was about to happen. How she knew, that will be a question for another class. We're going to get into precognition more because it's an important component of dreams, of understanding dreams. And if J.W. Dunn is correct from his 30 years of research into this, he was an aeronautical engineer who tracked his dreams very closely, and he found that about half of them had elements. They showed things that were going to happen in the future, at least elements of what was going to happen in the future, and sometimes entire events in very accurate detail. So I'd like to talk more about precognition at a later date, but I wanted to give you this introduction to show you another reason why dreams can be very important and the importance of paying attention to your dreams. They can warn you about things that are going to happen, and or it's not always just a warning. I want to make clear also that sometimes, I mean, there's good things that happen too, right? And you dream about them, and you can affirm that vision from a dream, you can affirm it simply in your feelings. This has happened. I've talked with a lot of people who were trying to get pregnant, trying to have children, and maybe things hadn't happened yet, and they start wondering, are we ever going to be blessed with a child? And then they have a dream where they, see themselves with their baby, and they ask, is this precognition? Is this dream going to come true? And I tell them, my general answer is, look, I can't tell you that. We don't know until later whether a dream was actually going to come true, although precognitive dreams do have special qualities to them. They have a certain energy to them, although they feel realer than real often. But what I tell them is to affirm what the dream showed them. If they like the outcome of the dream, then affirm it in themselves, especially in their heart and their feelings. And I think it has a way of sort of making things come true. I think that we can actually create the future through our dreams. Um, so yeah, I think that's an important thing to know, starting off about the importance of dreams, and that some dreams aren't just for you. Some dreams are for family, they're for community, they're for the world. If you're in a position like Caesar, where you are the leader of a empire, you have a lot of people that you're responsible for. And leaders are known to dream quite often about things that are going to affect their people, their nations, their clans, their empires. Uh, there's a lot of documented history of this happening. So there is a realize that some dreams aren't just for you. We tend to think of dreams as these processes that happen only in our minds, your mind, the individual space here, between the ears, inside the skull. But first of all, that's not an accurate way of talking about it, because dreaming is an experience of the entire nervous system, all up and down through the system. This is a full body experience. And it's not just a process of the brain. Dreaming is a process of the mind, and the mind in a larger, let's go higher. It's an experience of consciousness. And in case you haven't heard, it's pretty much proven now that consciousness is not just an epiphenomenon of brain function. Um, Consciousness seems to be something a lot more than that. And dreaming is intimately tied in with the experience of consciousness, because a dream is an experience that you have. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here at my notes, because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is a dream. But keep this in mind for now, that a dream, the experience of a dream or the experience of dreaming, is more than just a process that's going on within just this place, your skull. It's a full body experience for one. It's an experience of consciousness for two. And consciousness seems to be, at least in part, a shared thing. There are parts of the mind, parts of consciousness that are shared among us, which means that dreams can be shared, a topic for another time. But for our discussion now, it means that you can have dreams about people in your life or people you don't even know, and you can dream about it very accurately. Just yesterday, I was telling someone about the experience that Lindsay Wagner had. Lindsay Wagner was the Bionic Woman, the very popular television show back in the late 70s, early 80s. She had her magic lasso and her invisible plane. And she was one of the first female archetypal heroes on popular television. And so she was a very popular actress, very well known. She was in Chicago at O'Hare Airport with her mom, and she was about to get on a flight, and she got a really bad feeling and decided to reschedule her flight. Well, that flight crashed on takeoff, and everyone aboard the flight died. And there is a connection to dreaming, because there was a man who had dreamed, he had 10 nightmares, 10 nights in a row, about a plane crashing on takeoff. And he called the FAA, talked with a facilities manager who worked with him to try to figure out where this plane was and when it was going to take off, what flight it was. But he didn't have that information from his nightmares. He just knew the type of plane that it was. And they weren't able to figure it out before that happened. So there are a lot of cases of this where people have had these dreams and premonitions of things, and I think it shows that there is a part of the mind that is connected to everyone else and connected into the very fabric of space and time itself. Um, and time being part of space means that it's not a linear thing the way that we think about it. It's time itself, according to the block universe theory, which originates with Albert Einstein. All of time exists all at once. It's called the block universe theory. And it means that the way that you perceive time depends on where you are relative to that event. His theory of relativity is based on this idea that everything in the universe is in relationship with everything else. All points in space and time are connected in this very odd, mysterious sort of way, which we're finding out is there's a truth to it that is resonating very deeply now with people who are getting into the new science of quantum mechanics and field theory and stuff like that. But that will be a lecture for another time. What I wanted to do was give you the support for the things that I'm saying. I'm not just popping off the top of my head with this stuff. I've gone pretty deep into the study of this stuff. It fascinates me. And I've looked up the people who are very well known for the way, for their teachings about these subjects. And I found a lot of support for it. So yeah, some dreams aren't just for you. So that gets me to something that is a little bit of a side note here before we get to the next major part of the lesson, which is where attention goes, energy flows. And when we talk about dreaming and this relationship to what we give our attention to, what this brings me around to is something that I wanted to share with you, is that the more energy, meaning attention, that you give to your dreams, it's a feedback loop that comes back to you. Remember from our first day, Tuesday, first class, I talked about how the unconscious mind is in relationship with the conscious. The conscious mind is the ego part of you. The unconscious mind is this larger structure in the background, mostly, that has a lot of influence on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And that while dreaming, you have basically the conscious ego coming into contact with the unconscious, and there's this dynamic interaction that produces dream imagery. So now you're awake, right? And you are trying to understand your dream. Just giving the dream that attention is having a lot of benefit, because where attention goes, energy flows. So you're flowing energy into the unconscious simply by thinking about a dream, which then feeds back to you, because there's a lot of things that the unconscious does to help you as a conscious being, which we talked a lot about in the last class, about the reasons why we dream. Yeah, well, one of the big reasons why we pay attention to our dreams is because we're building a relationship with the part of our mind where dreams are being manifested from the unconscious. I also used an analogy of the ocean and the island. The unconscious is the ocean, and the conscious mind is the island that's within it. And if it starts off as a very small place, it's a little atoll. It's just a little bit of land sticking out of this vast body of water. And as you become a more conscious being, your island expands. And that means you are expanding as a conscious being. There's another analogy that comes from Dr. Carl Jung. He said that if you think of the unconscious, if you can use this metaphor too, the unconscious is like the soil that the trees of the forest grow from. So the trees are the individual conscious beings, and the soil supports and connects all of them. In fact, we're finding out that trees have an underground communication network. And Carl Jung called that the collective unconscious. It's this repository, this strata or layer of the mind, sublayer of the mind that connects everyone together. And it influences your dreams, and sometimes very dramatically. So if you think of the tree as this thing that's growing out of the unconscious, and you think of the forest and everything's interconnected, it kind of gives you an idea that there is one source where all of this is coming from, and we access it while we're dreaming. Call it the collective unconscious or the unconscious, call it the psyche, call it, there's different names floating around there. Pierre Darchedin called it the noosphere. He says that there is a sort of collective consciousness of all the minds on Earth in a symbiotic relationship with the planet itself that are all connected together like a network. My friend Bernie Beitman, who's a psychiatrist who studies this stuff, he calls it the psychosphere. I think that's a really interesting term because the way that we've observed that minds can be connected together, and they also connect with the planet, and the planet connects in with everything else in the universe. This is all interconnected. And our dreams are when our senses are muted in a low power state so that our minds can be free to open up to the larger system, this larger thing that we're all part of. So the point of this, my final thing in my notes here about this part of the lesson, and I want to get this across to you, is to expand your island. And you can do that by working with your dreams. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've been helping people for the last 15 years with their dreams. And I've seen it. I've seen the power of it. The Dreams That Shape Us podcast we've been doing this for 4 years now with my co-host, and we've documented case after case, dream after dream, where people show that their lives, they had this great expansion of themselves, in particular with their quest to find where they fit into this world and to be better people, to be the best people that they can be, to be the most effective that they can be. There's a lot that you can get out of your dreaming, in particular if you're a creative person. But boy, I've heard stories from people from all walks, all professions, or not profession, just people experiencing life, and the ways that they have expanded themselves because they paid attention to their dreams. What I'm going to teach you is how to interpret and analyze them. But remember, where attention goes, energy flows. Just give your dreams the attention. And that means writing them down in a journal. Now, that also might bring up the issue of whether or not you can remember your dreams very well. And that's going to be for another lecture. But I can tell you that I have this available in my crash course in, let me clear my throat real quick. RadOwl's Crash Course in Dream Interpretation is a free course it's an audio book, and it's a free course that's available at dreamschool.net, Owl's School of Dreaming. And in that, I have a lesson that I gave on the top 10 things to improve your dream recall. You can probably pop into Google and be like, tips for dream recall, and put in RadOwl and RADOWL, and it should pop up as one of the first results. But that is part of the curriculum here at Dream School, and I realize the importance of it. If you're going to work with your dreams, you have to remember them first, of course. And some people have difficulty with that. In fact, more than 50% of the population reports reports having a few dreams a week or less. There's about 15%, it depends on gender, but about 15 to 20% of the population reports basically not really, they think they're not dreaming at all because they're not remembering anything, but they really are dreaming. Remember, it's a biological necessity. We went over that in the first lesson. Which, okay, let's go on to the next part of this lesson. So we want to define what is a dream, because here at Owl's School of Dreaming, we study dreams. We study the interpretation and analysis of dreams, but it starts off with just understanding what is a dream. And anytime you study a subject, one of the first things you do is you define it. And I want to tell you a little story. First, I'm going to get a little more comfortable. Ah, and I'm going to do this cool trick. I think I can make my guitar appear in the background. Ah, there it is. All right. Magic, right? So, what is a dream? I remember running across an article where there was a very prominent name featured in that article who was answering that question, what is a dream? And I got all excited. I mean, she's a Harvard psychiatrist. I believe she's full tenured professor there. And if you read things about dreams, not just the study of dreams, but also in the media when they pick up on subjects related to dreams and they go out looking for experts to talk with, you often see her name associated with it. And I'll just say the name, Deirdre Barrett. I don't know her personally, but I've met her at conferences, and I mean, she's very knowledgeable, very well educated, and obviously she's in a very high position as far as the study of dreams goes. She's one of the top people to refer to. Obviously, a full tenured professor at Harvard is going to carry some authoritative weight. So I got into her. I started reading the article, and she got to her answer. What is a dream? She said, a dream is sleep mentation. Okay, so what is sleep mentation? I think I had to go look it up in the dictionary, but then she explained it later. She said, basically, mentation is thoughts. So sleep dreaming is thoughts you have while you're asleep. I said, well, okay. If we're looking for the lowest common denominator, what is a dream? And we want to answer it in the simplest way that we can, then, well, okay, a dream is sleep mentation, thoughts you have while you're asleep. All right, well, I'll accept that answer, although I think there's a lot better answers, and that's, you got a clue. We're about to get into some of those. Um, I When I answered this question, I was on the first time I answered it, I was on Coast to Coast AM as a guest. And if you've listened to overnight radio, obviously now you can stream it at any time. But when I was on in 2000, first time was in 2013, people still, they listen to the radio more. And so this was live and talking to, I was told there were about 3 million people that were listening that night. And the host, George Norrie, asked me, well, JM, what is a dream? And I had an answer ready for him. This is one that I'd worked through, gave it a lot of thought. I said, well, a dream is your imagination at work while you're asleep. And this came from something that I had run across, a study that showed that the imagination centers of the brain light up while you're dreaming in the same way as when you are really like creating something in your imagination actively. So if I say, imagine a scene where you are on a high dive and you are 30 feet off the ground and you're looking down at that pool, you're standing at the edge of the dive board. And now jump, see the water coming up at you, feel the weightlessness in your body. As soon as I said jump and I pictured that descent, or actually it's more like seeing the water coming, up to me, I could feel that weightlessness in my stomach, a little hint of it. If I was dreaming that, ooh, that would be a full sensory experience. You could feel the air going by, as you're going faster and faster. Feel your feet. I mean, I'm not going head first into that water if I jump off a high dive. So for me, it's going to be my feet. It's going to hit first. You use your imagination and imagine it any way you want to. So the splash of the water, the feeling of immersing down, the change in the temperature, all that stuff. If I imagine that, for myself. And then, and I'm in a brain scan at the time, it could be a fMRI, let's say. And now you can see what's going on in the brain as I'm imagining that. And then I dream it. It's going to pretty much happen the same way. You're going to see the same areas of the brain fire in the same patterns, same sequences. The imagination is not some little piece of white or gray matter. I found out recently that I believe the gray matter is what connects. The white matter is the sort of the CPU, and the gray matter is kind of the motherboard that connects all the chips together. So the CPU and the memory and all that stuff. So if we use an analogy, anyway, so if I say white matter and it means gray matter means white matter, we'll just call it brain matter. We'll make this easier. Okay. It's not just some piece of brain matter that's producing dreams or your imagination. It's areas of the brain that are working together in coordination. In particular, the occipital lobe, which is involved with visual processing. They've shown that gets real active, and it's believed that this is what's producing the imagery. But it's beginning really with your imagination. And while you're dreaming, your senses are shut down. So it's a more powerful experience of imagination. And it's happening in a way that allows you to have an experience. So when you have a dream, it is something that you experience. So what is a dream? It's something that you experience while you're asleep. It registers deep in the mind as something that really happens. The same as the things that happen in your daily life, your waking event, events of your waking life. Well, your dreams are events of your sleeping life, and they register deep down as experiences. And this is an important fact to know about dreaming because, well, I get this a lot where people come in. I get to this part of the lecture, and I've heard this before from people where they say, well, if dreams are just imagination, they're not real. Imagination is not real because real is what you experience while you're awake. Everything else is just your imagination. You hear that a lot. Oh, it's just your imagination. Child comes to you with a nightmare that they had. And what is, if you're just trying to sort of brush them off, you don't have a good answer for them, then you just say, oh, kid, it was just your imagination. Go back to sleep. Well, no, it's more than that. It registers as real experiences deep inside of you. So that answer that I gave to George Norrie at Coast to Coast, dreaming is your imagination at play while you're asleep. I think that's a good way of summarizing what is a dream. If you look in the dictionary, you'll often find something that says dreaming it's a succession of imagery, sometimes followed by sensations and feelings that you experience while you're asleep. I said, well, okay, that makes sense to me, I guess. That's what Webster is going to give us as a definition. But remember, we're trying to define what a dream is, to help us to understand what a person experiences when they have a dream, what you experience when you have your dreams. And if you approach it as an experience that you have, that frames it differently in your mind as you dig into the content of the dream and go, well, what does that mean? Or sometimes you can just reverse it around and say, well, why did I give myself that experience? This is a very important part of what I teach. In fact, it goes back to what I call simple fact number one, which is subconsciously, you know what your dreams mean. Why is that a true statement? Well, if you have not read my crash course in dream interpretation, you won't know that answer off the top of your head unless, well, I would say about half the time. I've asked this question a lot. About half the time, people have actually come up with the answer. And that answer is because you know what your dreams mean because you create them. And if you create your dreams, which you do subconsciously, It's, remember, a dream is an interaction between the ego consciousness coming into contact with contents of the unconscious. If you are if you are creating your dreams in that way, then it also means that you are creating experiences for yourself, because a dream, what is a dream? A dream is an experience you give yourself. This is what we're getting to here. You give it, you give yourself to it because you're creating it. It's in your, imaginatively, but we're finding out it's not just your imagination. Your imagination is being used by something deeper within yourself to create the experience of a dream. And I started talking in the last class about the self archetype, which is the core structure in the psyche that is creating our most meaningful dreams. Maybe all of them. But I can say with confidence that I know that our most meaningful dreams are being crafted because something within us wants us to have the experience. That something is known as the self archetype, and it is the very core central structure of what you are as a conscious being. So next time you tell someone it was just a dream, so you're giving yourself the experience of your dreams, and there are reasons why, and we can refer to different sources to understand those reasons why. And I'm not going to rehash them here because you have a lecture, Why We Dream, and that gives you a lot of information about that. You can refer to the last class. I am going to put it up on the YouTube channel here. It's not available yet, but it is coming here. Probably when I get done with this class, I'll take a little break and then I'll upload the video. It's ready to go. But if you enroll in my course at dreamschool.net, the October 2024 live class, I've got a lecture pre-recorded. It's in there and you can listen to it. I give you all the reasons why we dream, because in understanding why we dream, class, understanding why we dream does what? It helps us to understand what we dream. Okay, was just checking to see if there's any questions from the class. And there are not any questions right now. So that's great. Okay, so I have a maintenance issue, but I want to save that for the end because I've got your attention right now, I hope. And I want to keep this rolling because I have a really interesting fact at the end of my notes here that I want to make sure that we cover today. And it's something I ran across that is going to bring everything together. It's really interesting. Okay, so we're crafting these experiences deep in our mind. The self archetype is crafting these. It comes up with a story for us to experience while we're dreaming. A dream is an interactive story. It actually unfolds based on your responses to what the dream delivers to you. It puts you into a scenario, the scenario unfolds, you make choices. It's like a choose your own adventure. And then the dream responds to your choices. You could be like, I ain't getting on that plane. You dream, you've told me I've got a ticket and I've got to go, but I'm not getting on that plane because I know what's going to happen. So you decide to go off in a different direction. Well, what does your dream do now in response? Well, it says, okay, you're choosing your own adventure. So we're going to take you off into another story or another part of this story, another branch in the road. You went this way and the plane was taking off this way. Okay, well, let's tell this story. So a dream is an interactive experience. We're adding more and more to this definition. And it's one that it's an interactive experience you give yourself so that you can become a bigger island, so that you can expand yourself as a human being, so that you can actualize your potential, so that you can respond the best you can and have the information you need to make the best decisions in response to the unfolding circumstances of your life. Back to memory reconsolidation. This is a process that happens every time you dream. Every time you dream, your brain becomes receptive to receiving new information. Existing memory structures become plastic, which means they kind of warm up and become malleable. And a process happens where your brain actually rewires itself to incorporate the new memories into your existing memory structures. So, a pretty wild thing going on as you sleep, right? You're remaking yourself. And that's why you're giving yourself the experience of your dreams, the main reason. But I'd like you to think about that for yourself and ask maybe a recent dream. Let's take the most recent dream that you remember. I got too much in my mind right now. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, a recent dream, and ask yourself why you gave yourself that experience. Imagine that someone with infinite resources hired a movie studio. Heck, they hired Steven Spielberg, okay, or someone else. Take a famous director, and created, this experience. Said, I want to craft an experience that's so believable that as someone watches this movie, they'll forget that it's a movie. They'll forget that they're watching something that's up on a screen, and they will see themselves as participants. They will walk into the screen and experience it in a fully three-dimensional environment. And it's so believable, so powerful that it will make a lasting impact on them. That's what's basically happening. Your self archetype is the one that has the infinite resources. It hires your imagination, or maybe the imagination is more like the movie theater, and it recruits in different parts of you that can cast the perfect characters, that can find the perfect locations, the settings for the dream movie to take place. People to be there with you. So there's a casting director in there. You're also the one experiencing the movie. So you're creating it in the unconscious mind and experiencing it as the conscious mind comes into contact with it. This is why we don't understand the meaning of our dreams, most of us, off the top of our heads. And I'll include myself there with it too. Because every time I start understanding my dreams better and I go, oh, that's why that character keeps appearing. That I understand that character now. Well, then my dreams change. If I start understanding a certain storyline or theme that runs through my dreams, a character, a setting, then my dreams respond and go, okay, that was good, but we're going deeper now. We're gonna make this a little more obscure, and so I can keep experiencing the dream as if it is a real experience, because it is a real experience, and fully immerse into the experience of it. The goal of the dream is to pull you totally into it, totally immersed. Spielberg is making a movie that he knows the audience is just going to be so engaged with it that they'll forget that they're in a movie theater. And that's what happens while we're dreaming. Most of us forget that we're actually dreaming. Some of us can become conscious and aware that while we're dreaming. And that's a subject for another time. I am going to have some lectures on lucid dreaming, and hopefully I'm going to have some guests, some friends who are going to join us for some lectures, and will really blow your mind with what they've experienced and what they can teach you about lucid dreaming. But for now, the point is that you're creating this theatrical environment to have these dramas that we call dreams, and they are experiences that you're giving yourself. And subconsciously, you know what they mean because you're creating them for yourself. So it's this conscious mind trying to figure out what the unconscious mind, the movie director or writer had in mind when it created the story. And a lot of what I teach uses this analogy to take you through with the confidence that you can figure out what your dreams mean because you're creating them. So you need to understand the part of your mind where they are being created. You need to understand the unconscious. You need to understand the process of dreaming. And then you can start putting it all together. And this is when I see my students really start, when they wrap their minds around this much, they can start applying it to their own dream lives. So I want you to think about that dream that you had and why you gave yourself the experience of it. You don't necessarily have to analyze it and understand all the symbols and interpret it to understand the language of the dream, the meaning of it. We look for meaning in dreams. And I think it's actually easier starting off just to understand the experience of the dream and why you gave it to yourself. We're an hour in, and I have one last piece of note here to give you. And then we'll go over, I'll check see if there's any questions, and we'll go over a little bit of housekeeping. I was at Reddit, and when am I not at Reddit? And I was going through an Ask Me Anything, an AMA is what we call them in Reddit speak. It's where experts and people come in and talk about things that they know about, that they're supposed to be experts in their field, or, can expand. We don't have to be experts, but okay. So this was an expert. This on the brain was a neuroscientist who was doing an AMA, and uh, somebody asked them a question about dreaming, which of course got my attention, and it turned into this discussion thread. And this neuroscientist shared something that I found fascinating, and I think you will too. It's about what happens while we're dreaming when you study the brain. Now, I talked in the last class about activation synthesis theory, where there were these observations that the brain stem starts producing signals that rise up through or out of the structure of the brain. So it starts with the brain stem, and then you get into there's kind of the lizard brain around there, and then there's the mammalian structures of the brain, and then there are the cortical structures, the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the brain, which is said to be where higher thought and intelligence originates, although I don't think originates the right word. I think where it's received, or at least processed. And so this is going on. These signals are rising up, and they take on more and more complexity as more areas of the brain get involved with interpreting those signals. Signals is important for this, so keep that in mind. As you are right now experiencing your life and any other time that you're awake, there is a flow of signals which is received, or which is originating in the body and is being received in the brain. There's a signal flow. I touch the glass here on my table, and I can feel that the nerves are sensing the glass and sending a signal to my brain that my brain then interprets as that is the feeling of a glass. Your eyes process basically electrical signals that are traveling in along the optical nerve, and it goes into the brain. The brain interprets those signals and turns it into the imagery that you see. Same thing happens with your other senses. So signal flow into the brain interprets the signal flow and creates your experience of life, basically the conscious experience of yourself and as a daytime human being, as in like when you're awake, is created through the signal flow. Well, here's what this neuroscientist said that I found to be really fascinating. Dreaming reverses that signal flow. The signals are originating in your brain, and flowing out through your nervous system to your body. Now, there is a protective mechanism that mutes the signals that are going to your limbs that tell them to act in response. So if you have if you see yourself in a dream and you're running, but your body's actually laying there in bed asleep, you don't want to start running because you're dreaming about it. So there's a mechanism for muting. It's the secretion of acetylcholine onto the brainstem so that it will mute, in particular, the limbs, arms and legs, so that they won't act out what the signals that they're receiving from the brain. But it tells us, though, that the signals are coming from the brain into the body and through the nervous system. So remember when I talked about dreams as being an experience that you create for yourself? Well, I think neuroscience has found the evidence to confirm that. And you're actually creating an experience for yourself that your entire body experiences. And there's a really interesting branch in the dream work tree called embodied dream work. It begins with Robert Bosnak, Gene Campbell, a very dear person in my life, also teaches how to interpret dreams, understand dreams, to understand the significance of them personally for yourself, um, through what the body tells you about a dream. I bring this up because I want to end today's lecture with this understanding that I'm going to teach you a lot about the knowledge that goes into dream interpretation and analysis. I've accumulated that knowledge. I've been studying this for a long time, and I'm really interested in the subject. But your body already knows what the dream means. You know this deep down inside of yourself. Not just because you created the experience, but because you experienced the experience. Your brain had reversed your body, your whole nervous system reversed the flow so that something deep down in your mind, the self archetype, could use the entire system to not only create, but also have the experience. And your body can tell you a lot about your dream. It's not just an experience of breaking it down and applying all of these processes and knowledge and methods and stuff, which I am going to teach you. But it's also of basically feeling your dream. You can follow the feelings of a dream into your body, into your experience of life, into who you are as a human being. And that is where you can know the meaning of your dream, the importance and significance of it. Make a note to myself to further define meaning for you. In fact, I'll just tell you something real quick about that. This comes from my friend, Dr. Scott Sparrow, who listened to one of my books, and he loved the book. Thank you, Scott. But he came back with something. He said, Jason, you talk a lot about the meaning of a dream, and the meaning of a dream is kind of a moving target. We think of a dream as something that's sort of flash frozen. You had the dream, and this is what it means. And now we can analyze it and break it down and apply all this knowledge and all these great techniques and methods and stuff. And we can figure out the meaning of a dream. And he said, at best, what we can say about a dream, and when we work on the meaning of it, is that the dream is an expression of processes that were happening at the time There are psychological and physiological and spiritual processes that are happening at the time of the dream. And the dream is a chronicle of what was happening at that moment. Well, now you're interpreting your dream, and those processes aren't flash frozen, they're continuous. In fact, brings me to another little interesting point. Dr. Carl Jung and others have said that dreaming is a continuous process. It does not end when you wake up, and which means it doesn't necessarily begin when you go to sleep. Dreaming is a process of the mind that is always running in the background. And when Dr. Jung saw it in people with schizophrenic patients who would have basically eruptions of vivid dreaming while they're awake, and then they can't differentiate waking reality from the dream overlay, this augmented reality of dream imagery that's overlaying with their conscious experience of life. And it was a deep insight that he found, not just about schizophrenia and that type of mental illness, but just that the dreaming process is always running, always happening. And it's because, well, I won't say because, it relates to this idea also of meaning, because we're looking into processes that were happening at the time of the dream, but that was at that time. So it's not a bullseye to hit. Okay. When you interpret a dream, it's not something where this is a bullseye is a stationary target, presumably, but the meaning of a dream is a moving target. It's part of an ongoing process that happens. And as we know from this finding from neuroscience, that the brain and body reverse their usual signal flow, that it's an experience that you're giving yourself and that you're experiencing with all of your being. Okay, that's the lecture for today. I'm J.M. DeBord. This is Owl's School of Dreaming, not Owl, like Al Bundy. Owl's School of Dreaming, like owls, the creatures of the night. We are the owls at dreamschool.net, and we teach the ways of dreaming, how to be wise in the ways of dreaming. And we are going to be continuing these classes every Tuesday and Thursday for the month of October. And I'm going to continue this into November and beyond for as long as you keep showing up as students. I will keep showing up to offer these lessons. So Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then on Saturdays, we do office hours. I'm sharing this lecture on my YouTube channel, RadOwl. So RADOWL is the channel name. You can put that in and find the channel. I hope that you've enjoyed this lecture and that you were this talk that we've had about dreams, and that you will join me at the Owl School. You'll be one of my students, or, okay, yeah, you're a student when you join the school, but my goal with this, my mission really, is to create a new generation of dream workers, which means I'm looking for colleagues. But that doesn't have to be what your goal is when you take my classes. Your goal can be just to understand your dreaming life better, to expand your island, to become a more conscious human being, to make better decisions in your life, to understand what your dreams can offer you, which is tremendous benefits. But you can get that by taking my courses, Understanding Your Dreams Better. I'll give you everything that I can offer as a teacher. I have a tremendous amount of learning material that's already created. And as a teacher, what makes me a teacher is the students that I teach. And I want those students, like I said, to become colleagues if they're willing. And if you're willing, I'll take you all the way through this process from beginning, which we're pretty well into it now, huh? After 2.5 hours of lecture, I've now taken you pretty far into this subject, so that in the next class on Tuesday, October 8th, So anyway, the second week of October, the first Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, I will get into, now we're ready to get into more of the mechanics of dream interpretation and analysis. I'm going to take you into the understanding of dream settings, which is part of step 1 of my dreams 1, 2, 3 process. So students, be ready. You've at least listened to the introduction material that's a part of the course material under intro material. So right now I'm seeing in my mind our course structure. Under intro material there at the very top, you're going to see there is a lesson, which is the introduction to the crash course in dream interpretation, 3 simple facts plus 3 simple steps. This is essential knowledge for all owls. So I hope that you've already at least listened to that 15-minute lecture so that on Tuesday, we can hit the ground running. And the stuff that I start talking about with step 1, dream settings, will really, you'll have that foundation built. You can also read the crash course in dream interpretation, which is part of the intro learning materials. Now, there is a lot of other material that is there that is optional for now. The intro learning material, there's 8 or 10 different things there that I've given you, and some of it's kind of long. I realize there can be kind of a lot of reading, and you can pick and choose among that. But remember that this is for the entire month. You don't have to read all of that at once, but I do hope that you have listened, because it's an audio lecture, listen to the crash course introduction. And if you can go further with it to get into the demonstrations, demo number 1 in particular, get into the demonstrations of the process, you'll be really ready to go on Tuesday. jm@dreamschool.net is the email for my school, and I welcome anyone who wants to know about the course. If you can't do the live course, I have a lot of pre-recorded material there. Dream School opened, I want to say 2017. That's when I started recording the videos. I maybe didn't have them available until 2018, but either, I mean, that's at least 6 years that we've been doing this. And I've recorded a lot of courses that are very in-depth and offer what I think is some of the best learning material out there about the study of dreams. But this live course is where we bring it all together. So I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you'll join me next time. It's next Tuesday, or actually Saturdays. Owls, keep in mind, students of the course, students of the October course, we have office hours at 2 p.m. on Saturday, Eastern time. So I'll be there to answer your questions. And if we can get enough of you there, then we can run a dream group and start tapping into the group wisdom of dreams. So please join me for that. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I thank you for paying attention, and I hope you have happy dreams. So until next time.